A lot of you have been reaching out saying, please provide an explainer on the entire issues in these books. Well, you got it. Today, we're diving headfirst into the monumental 10-volume synthesis of Henry Corbin's philosophical journey. We are dedicating this explainer to unpacking the massive Henry Corbin Studies series, and honestly, we're going to explore how this brilliant thinker completely revolutionized our understanding of Islamic philosophy, existence, and, well, the human mind itself. Let's get right into it.
So we're going to start with a question that honestly might challenge literally everything you think you know about how the human mind works. Ready? Is your imagination just make-believe? I mean, modern psychology often tells us that it is, right? It tells us that the images in our minds are just subjective products of our cognitive activity, or, maybe just projections of our internal desires. But Henry Corbin, he completely shatters this assumption.
See, modern thought usually dismisses the imagination as mere fantasy. We treat it like it's just this subjective, isolated invention of your own brain. But Corbin introduces this mind-blowing concept he calls the imaginal. And he argues that the imaginal is completely objective. No, really, it's an entirely real, independent dimension of existence, complete with its own laws of manifestation. So we don't just invent it, we actually tune into it.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the eclipse of being. Then we'll move through the rationalist trap, explore the real imaginal world, dive into reality as perpetual disclosure, and finally wrap up with knowledge as inner transformation.
Starting with Section 1, the eclipse of being, and how we ended up losing the wonder of existence. To really grasp our modern crisis of meaning, we have to trace the de-evolution of philosophy. We started in Step 1 with profound wonder. Think about the ancients, looking up at the night sky, completely awestruck, asking, what does it actually mean to exist at all? But over time, philosophy kind of shifted to epistemology. It became all about how do we know for sure? The focus moved entirely to certainty and representation. And eventually we hit Step 3, utility. This is where reality just got reduced to what can be mathematically measured, controlled, and used.
So to fix this severe flattening of modern thought, where everything deep and mysterious just becomes a flat, usable object, we really have to look at ontology. Now, ontology is the foundational study of being. And just to be super clear here, we do not mean studying being as some abstract, dusty academic category. We're talking about the essential, vibrant condition that makes all appearing, all knowledge, and all presence possible. It's the very study of existence that thinkers like Martin Heidegger labored to recover, because they realized we had completely forgotten the difference between mere objects and the actual vital event of being itself.
And this wasn't just some harmless theoretical mistake. It literally led straight to the modern epidemic of nihilism. By reducing being to mere objects that we can just measure and consume, we completely marginalized spiritual meaning. We ended up creating a culture totally devoid of shared ontological foundations. And honestly, we lost the depth of the world.
Moving on to Section 2, the rationalist trap, or as I like to call it, boxing in Ibn Sina.
A prime example of this modern reductionism is how Western scholarship basically captured the legacy of the great 11th century philosopher Ibn Sina, who you might know as Avicenna. The dominant rationalist canon essentially boxed him in as this purely logical calculator. They focused strictly on abstract metaphysics and treated his incredible poetic, allegorical texts as mere secondary ornaments, just fluff. But Corbin completely reclaims him as a profound visionary. He argues that these allegorical texts aren't fluff at all. They are irreducible philosophical achievements that actually require transformative participation from the reader.
By suppressing these incredibly rich symbolic narratives, like the Hayy ibn Yaqzan and the Risalat al-Tayr, the modern academic apparatus completely masked the deeper, mystical plurality of Ibn Sina's actual intellectual vision. They forced him into this rigid, modern rationalist framework, completely missing his profound teachings on the soul's experiential ascent.
Which brings us to Section 3, the real imaginal world, a bridge between worlds.
So, what is the revolutionary solution to all this philosophical crisis? It is the Mundus Imaginalis. This right here is Corbin's pivotal, absolute game-changing concept. It designates an intermediate domain, an imaginal world. It sits exactly between the purely sensory world, the physical stuff we can touch, and the purely intelligible world, which is the abstract concepts we think. This is a realm where archetypes, visionary experiences, and spiritual presences are undeniably, objectively real. And this concept just brilliantly challenges the modern binary we're so used to. The imaginal world proves that the imagination is actually a bridge between the finite and the infinite.
It is absolutely not a subjective projection. In this realm, forms are simultaneously visible and meaningful. It perfectly mediates the hidden and the manifest. And the catch? To access it, you must actively cultivate a specific cognitive tool, your imaginal faculty.
Next up, Section 4, Reality as Perpetual Disclosure and the Event of Tajalli.
Drawing heavily on the magnificent thinker Ibn Arabi, we see pretty quickly that we need a completely new vocabulary to move beyond static things. And the concept of tajalli provides exactly that. Tajalli translates to divine self-disclosure. It's a structure of reality that is ceaselessly unfolding. It's the intrinsic, inexhaustible process by which being continuously reveals itself over and over again without ever dividing or depleting its source.
To put that into perspective, this radically departs from the classical ideas we are so used to hearing. Classical creation, for example, suggests an act of external production, a creator making a completely separate thing, which causes an ontological rupture. Then you have emanation, which suggests a diminishing outflow from unity, almost like a flashlight getting weaker the further its beam travels. But tajalli? Tajalli is a perpetual, non-separative event where the absolute constantly reveals itself in full, inexhaustible plenitude, right here, right now.
So the crucial takeaway here is that reality is happening right now, event by event, form by form, continuously being renewed. The cosmos isn't just some static, constructed object that was built way back in the past and left to run like a wind-up clock. No, it is an ongoing, articulated event, grounded in the absolute, inexhaustible depth of being. There's no underlying static substance, there is literally only perpetual disclosure.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 5, Knowledge as Inner Transformation, or Seeing with the Soul. So what does this all mean for you, the knower? How do we actually acquire knowledge in such a dynamic, luminous universe? Well, modern society relies super heavily on what we call representational knowledge. That's the passive reception of concepts and just accumulating abstract facts. But Corbin insists on participatory knowledge. He argues that true philosophical understanding isn't just about memorizing facts for a test. It is a dynamic, lived, phenomenological experience that fundamentally and existentially changes who you are as a person. Learning, therefore, is not just observation. When you actively cultivate that imaginal faculty we talked about earlier, your perception and the universe's revelation finally coincide. Knowledge itself becomes the actual event of reality, disclosing its luminous nature to a soul that is genuinely prepared to receive it. Ultimately, Corbin's massive 10-volume synthesis proves that asking the deep questions about being isn't just some archaic, pointless academic exercise. It's actually the only way to rescue our modern world from total meaninglessness. We have to move past a world reduced to cold, hard objects and deliberately return to a philosophy that honors both deep thought and profound vision.
I'm going to leave you to ponder this final profound thought, because once you truly realize the imaginal world is an objective reality and that you are an active participant in the perpetual disclosure of existence, well, nothing is ever quite the same. So, how will you look at the world now that imagination is real? Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible exploration.